Are you struggling to find something to do now that we're going through the writers and actors strikes? Too Opinionated has you covered. 625 and counting episodes of the best actors, musicians, writers, and everybody involved in the entertainment universe. Go to MeisterCon Pod on YouTube and subscribe, and you'll never miss an episode. Thank you guys for your support. Until next time, bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. I'm really excited today. I've got author Stephen Jarchow with me. So welcome, Stephen.
Thank you.
How'd I do on that last name?
Well, you're the first person to get it right in 50 years, so I appreciate
it. That may be the first time anybody has ever said that to me, because normally I screw up the last name. So I'm pleased with that.
I think you're great. You did an excellent job on this part of the program.
We better just stop right here. I got to quit while I'm ahead. Well, so let's start this way, sir. I want to talk about the new book, but let's get a little bit of your background. Tell us a little bit about, who you are and what it is that you do.
Well, I'm from Wisconsin originally. I went to law school and business school at the University of Wisconsin. Practiced law for 5 years. Then I was in real estate in this country and overseas for many years, and I continue to do that. And about 30 years ago, I met my business partner, and we, Paul Kalishman, another Paul, in addition to Paul Zane Pilzer, who wrote the book. And we started making movies, and we made, several hundred motion pictures.
Oh, it's amazing, the volume.
Well, we've been doing, 10 to 12 a year for a long time now. And, it's the most challenging business I've ever tried, but we've had some success. We've managed to make money doing it and stay in business. And right now we own very valuable aimed at the gay audience called Here TV. And we make content for that as well as content for all kinds of other outlets.
Yeah, that's terrific. Yeah, I love that. I know you did work on 100 Years of Men in Love. I know you helped produce that one. We had David on the show to talk about, that kind of documentary, but I know you were involved in that. But just looking at your IMDb page, you've had literally hundreds of projects that you've been a part of. That's pretty amazing.
Well, it's been interesting. If you want variety, you have to be careful because God will give it to you, and then you've got trouble.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's kind of like that, like when you're a kid and you say, I'm bored to a parent or a grandparent. Well, they're going to give you something to do, but it's not going to be something you want to do.
Right.
So the new book is The New Roaring 20s. Tell me about that. What's the book about? Why did you decide to write that? I know you've written some financial books, but why this one?
Well, my friend of 40 years, Paul Zane Pilzer, was working on this book, and basically he was writing it for his children. He has 4 children, and they were asking him what's going to happen, in the future. And he spent a few years researching and was fairly prescient. But unfortunately, Paul suffered an illness, and he and his wife called me and asked me if I would finish the book for him. And
that's not an easy task.
Well, it's something I could do for my friend, and I learned a lot while doing it. We had a good exchange, and it enabled me to particularly focus on artificial intelligence, because it seemed quite clear that that's going to be pervasive in all of our lives, certainly during the next 10 years, the new roaring 20s. So that's how the book came about. And the book sets forth 12 areas, 12 pillars that are going to be important during the next 10 years.
Yeah.
2 of the chapters are devoted to technology and artificial intelligence, and 2 of the chapters are devoted to the human side of this. You know, how do we deal with this massive change from an unemployment standpoint and a psychological standpoint? You know, how do we prevail with a technology that frankly is a lot smarter than we are?
Right. Yeah, and it's so interesting, especially now because every day we're hearing about something with AI or artificial intelligence that's either coming or is already here. Even you remember it wasn't too long ago everybody was doing the AI representations of themselves, the different pictures of themselves with that, and it just continues to evolve. And I'd read where you've got actors, the latest one I read was Bruce Willis, that put out or signed a deal where his likeness could be in commercials or maybe even in film projects down the road. Did I lose you?
Okay.
Okay, so we froze up for just a second, but I was just saying we're seeing celebrities now that are signing deals to use their likeness in commercials or in film. Bruce Willis was the newest one, and I wanted to see what your thoughts on that were.
Well, that's going to be a part of the movie and television business going forward. The studios are all have AI initiatives. And are you hearing me okay?
Yeah, you're coming through fine now.
Okay, good. Just wanted to check. So that's going to be a big part of how movies are made, how television is made. Stars are going to be able to make money off their images, probably in perpetuity, even after they're gone. For the average actor, the journeyman actor or extras, right now, the way the contracts are written, they basically release all rights,
Right.
and and their image can be used not only in the project they're working on, but in other projects as well. And one area that the Screen Actors Guild may wish to focus on is, that seems to be okay for the project you're working on to sign a complete release of rights. But with respect to other projects, probably the Screen Actors Guild will draw the line in that regard. So this is, an issue that is part of the strike. I don't think it's the most important issue, but I think, money is the most important issue, and earning residuals on streaming is going to be, the issue that really needs to be settled.
That's right.
But AI is certainly being discussed in that context, both from the standpoint of opportunity and the problematic aspects of it as well.
Yeah, they really have to be careful with how this is negotiated, because yes, they got to figure out the streaming part with the residuals, because obviously that doesn't line up with what they were making previously when it was just broadcast networks. But this AI thing, I think, could be even bigger down the road. So they don't want to give up too much of those rights without making sure they're getting fairly compensated, or it's going to have repercussions for thousands of actors, going forward.
Well,
yeah, so we're having a little bit of technical issues. We froze up a couple times, but I think we're talking about just the fact that the negotiations going on right now with the strike. AI is a big part of that, even though maybe it's not as important right this second, but it's coming. And if they don't make sure to do it correctly, it could definitely impact actors going forward for years.
Well, it's going to be a pervasive part of the movie business, and also music, and just about every area. And it's actually going to be a pervasive part of our lives and our businesses.
Yeah.
The 7 most valuable companies in the world are all AI, information technology, and infrastructure companies.
Right.
And that's not a coincidence, because that's where value is going forward. If you look at what were the most valuable companies 30 years ago in 1993, it's a completely different list. And some of these companies, many of them, did not exist at that time.
Right.
But artificial intelligence is an initiative that all of them are pursuing. And if you listen to earnings calls and pronouncements, it's pretty much all because they're all working on it, and it's what's going to create value for these companies.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the fear everybody has is that this type of intelligence is going to get to the point that it's a little bit out of our control, and that maybe it turns into something that we would not like. I mean, do you see any issues with that going forward? Is that really a legitimate fear, or is that just something that because of the movies and TV shows we're concerned about but don't really need to be?
Well, first of all, AI is going to be a huge benefit in many, many fields, including medicine and logistics and infrastructure, climate management, things like that. It's going to be really positive for many, many industries and many, many people. However, a lot of people are either going to lose their jobs,
right,
or their job is going to rather dramatically change. And it's going to eliminate a lot of busy work and a lot of detailed work. But in order to be successful going forward, you need to understand how you will work with AI and what it can do for you. And then there's the existential question as to what happens if AI continues to advance the way it is. And things are happening so fast. It used to be these things would take a decade, and now they're taking months to develop one application after another. And if that happens, and it looks like it will, because these companies, even though they've indicated to the president and to the world at large that they're going to put up guardrails, there's going to be security, they're all in competition with one another. Right. And at a certain point, that's going to nix a lot of the safety and security issues. So to answer your question, there is a more than zero chance that this is the end of us.
Right.
That, we will become unnecessary at some point. And it doesn't mean that AI needs to become sentient. There's no evidence that AI has real human emotions,
right,
or feelings about things. AI is like a big processing machine that gathers, millions and millions of data points and sifts and winnows those points in order to assist us in making conclusions. However, just as we have been the dominant species over and above animals who and even other people who we've treated very poorly, it would not be unheard of for AI to decide, well, you're not useful to us anymore. You're interesting, but we don't need you. And that's, there's a legitimate risk of that, just as, Oppenheimer, when he developed the atomic bomb, there was a more than zero chance that he would blow up, the universe, as we knew it. And the feeling was, once things caught on fire and the molecules started working, that the whole atmosphere would catch on fire. And so, he decided to take that risk. And I think the the technologists are also taking that kind of risk with AI right now, and the danger is real. It's something we need to understand and appreciate as we proceed. It's not nothing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's why I brought it up, because that's what everybody worries about. And we're already seeing it like in the service industry. You've got, and it's kind of a novelty thing right now, but you're seeing like robot, waiters or servers, especially where they're bringing the food to the table. I mean, that's a whole section of the population that job wise may get eliminated.
Well, I'd be a little surprised if it takes goes that far with respect to wait staff and people like that. I think there is usefulness to that sort of human interaction. One of the things we can do to attempt to deal with AI is to be more human. And that means interacting with humans and not interacting quite so much with machines.
Yeah.
There's a real tendency right now, for people not to have this kind of conversation like you and I are having,
Right.
but instead focus on their phones and their other machines to the exclusion of humans, other than humans ranting and raving with all kinds of misinformation. Social media is a crude form of AI, and we've seen the corrosive effect that has had on our national dialogue, on our democracy, and also, with children addicted to it. I mean, if you go to a restaurant nowadays, you'll see people, a husband and a wife, or two people out on a date, looking at their phones for the whole meal rather than talking to each other. So it's kind of important that we reach out to other humans and have interactions with other humans, and don't cut ourselves off from that. It's just not productive for us. It sounds like a soft response, but frankly, if we can realize that we need to embellish and promote our humanity, and that means being of service to others, being available to help others. As we get older, we'll have friends and family who are ill, who are running into financial difficulties. There's all kinds of problems that people have. And if you look for opportunities to be of service, you'll be the winner, first of all. You'll gain more from it than anybody help. But it makes us more human at that point. To the extent that we become more human and look out for others, which is how, unfortunately, a lot of people, they hate a chance to distinguish ourselves from the machines and maybe have some success in dealing with it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's well said. And we're seeing like a whole new type of health issues based on the technology that we're using. You're seeing people, with problems, neck problems, back problems, because they're always on electronic devices where their head's kind of down. And it causes some issues, because that's not a natural way to be for hours at a time during the day. So I think unplugging like that and treating technology more as a tool instead of a way that we communicate with each other, I think could go a long way.
Well, we have all sorts of opportunities to interface using technology, and not excluding other humans from our lives. I mean, and if we will reach out, they're often, in fact, almost always, very happy to see us, to spend time with us, but we need to do that. So I think it's kind of important for us to be human. In addition, we need to know as much as we can within the limitations of our education and background about AI, because it probably is the most important development of our lifetimes. Even though we've seen extraordinary technological advances and more to come, AI is kind of the end game for us if we aren't careful. So let's be careful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So can or is AI capable of helping with, say, climate change?
Absolutely. I mean, AI is able to create robots that will be much more functional than humans in a lot of climate control situations.
Yeah.
It allows us to access extraordinary amounts of data and look at that data critically in a way that humans just can't. AI and other technologies, including, Paul Pilzer and I are very keen on geothermal. We think that that is going to be a solution, particularly with the technological advances and artificial intelligence over the next 10 years. It is our view, rightly or wrongly, that 10 years from now, energy is not going to be a problem. We will be able to improve the alternative sources and also improve the extraction of fossil fuels, probably decrease that somewhat. And, there was a time during COVID, during the pandemic, that oil actually had certain types of oil actually had a negative price point because they couldn't be used. And companies were paying shippers to take oil away because they didn't have a use for it at that point in time. That's going to happen again.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and we're moving, some would say too slowly, towards alternative energy sources. But in order to fix, I mean, all you have to do is walk outside, and you can tell some of the changes we're getting in the weather and some of the severe weather, not really normal. It's and some of our seasons are starting to kind of meld into each other. So if we can do something, AI assisted or not, that can change some of that and get us back on more of a normal path, that has to be a good thing.
You're right. All you have to do is go outside, particularly here in Dallas this afternoon. And you're going to have weather like that for the next, several weeks, if not months. And that's instructive as to what's going on. AI will make a huge difference. It just gives us the ability to research, study, to gather data, and to develop robots that can function pretty autonomously in order to correct a lot of these problems. I think it's going to solve a lot of the climate change and related issues, but it'll create its own issues.
That's right. Well, and so what are some of the issues? Who are there's always, anytime you have technology, there's always a segment that's going to use it for bad reasons. With technology, what are the ones that we need to be careful with?
Well, an obvious one and an imminent one is the military applications of AI, where AI is weaponized. There's no constraints upon Russia and China to use AI in order to create autonomous weapon systems where the machines make a decision as to a kill. Defense has said that we're not going to have autonomous weapons, that human series move forward with autonomous weapons systems. Our military is what keeps our republic strong, right, and preserves democracy in our country. And we have to have the strongest military in order to deal with some pretty difficult authoritarian figures and despots who really don't have any moral compulsion whatsoever to use these weapons. And so I really think we're going to end up in this country with autonomous weapon systems, and that's very dangerous. Get confused or not work properly, and wipe out half a city if it chose to. So this is going to be a real danger. And there's as there's competition among countries, there's also competition among companies. And these companies, well, they are paying lip service to, the constraints. Let's slow this thing down. They're all in a mad race to be as successful and as advanced in this area as they can, because this is the future. And as a result, things very likely will get out of control. It's a very dangerous situation. Again, there are going to be huge benefits. I think it's going to solve a lot of problems. I think, particularly with respect to medical, it's going to permit a doctor to access diagnoses and studies from all over the world, and particularly in dealing with unusual or rare diseases, to come up with a ready basis now. It's going to dramatically improve the efficiency of our flexible manufacturing systems, which currently use robots. They're going to get better and better. The supply chains will probably be improved dramatically by use of AI to expand logistics and make things much more efficient. So there's all sorts of good things that are going to happen.
Sure.
But as you point out, there will be a reconfiguration of jobs. It's been predicted that the number of people in the workforce, which is currently around 50% in this country, will drop to closer to 30%, because a lot of jobs will no longer be necessary, and a lot of jobs will dramatically change. And so part of our book deals with the concepts, the hodgepodge of social welfare systems and medical support systems that we have, which are confusing, difficult to access. Yeah. And, our view is that a stipend to all Americans, regardless of your income level or wealth, so there's no stigma attached to receiving the stipend, but that'll make a huge difference. A couple $1,000s a month for a lot of people is the difference between eating and not, and it puts them in a position not to be desperate and panicked all the time, which is how a lot of people feel, and that creates anxiety and causes violence and all kinds of other problems. I mean, look at how we treat our prisoners who come out of prison and are supposed to acclimate. I mean, they have no safety net, really. And if they had a couple $1,000s a month, it might permit them to get on the right course rather than pursuing, the same path they pursued that got them into prison. So there's a lot of reasons to do this. And we are really going to push for this, because this transition is going to be very bumpy and very difficult for a lot of people. And this sort of safety net could make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great idea. And I like the example of the prison system, because obviously we're going to have to address that at some point. We're putting too many people in. So we got to figure out, is there certain things that maybe we wouldn't need to send somebody to jail or to prison for, to reduce that population. And then we definitely have to do something for when people get out, because they're coming out and they're basically starting from zero. They have nothing. So if they don't have family or somebody outside to help them, it's pretty rough. And it's not easy finding a job once you've been into to prison. So yeah, those are issues that have to be addressed at some point.
Well, it's going to start all over again. I mean, they're going to pursue the course they're most familiar with, which got them, to where they are, and so they need support and help. We have the largest, and I agree with you. I mean, you really need to take a hard look at what puts people into prison.
Yeah.
And how we deal with that. I mean, if certain crimes of basic income, I think we'd have a very good chance of keeping a lot of those people out of prison.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. I think that's a terrific idea. So going back to the book, how does this situation we're dealing with now, how does that compare to what they were dealing with in the 20s?
Well, the 20s was a period of very rapid economic growth.
Yeah.
Much slower than what we're experiencing now. It was a period of ambulance where people were excited, and there was a lot of illegal activity during that time. Not only because of prohibition, but also there was incredible corruption in the stock market and in the financial markets and with respect to banking. Embezzlement during that time was at an all-time high, never equaled as a percentage of capital. And it was a period that there didn't seem to be any constraints. Extraordinary growth, at a pace much faster than anything they experienced. We're going to see, a lot of technological developments, which they also saw back then. And at the beginning of the 20s, very few people had an automobile.
Right.
By the end of the 20s, most people viewed it as a necessity. Most of them lost their automobiles, or at least some did. And, it was a very technologically advanced period, but nothing compared to what we're going to experience. I'm not really saying that the level of corruption is as great now as it was then, but it's pretty significant. All you have to do is read the Wall Street Journal every day. We certainly have a very pervasive spam and very poor ability to identify who's real and who's not. If you look at the use of bots and the use of artificial intelligence for criminal activity, you have a level of criminality that may well, on the surface, not be as prevalent, but underneath, in the underworld of artificial intelligence, may be the greatest we've ever had. There may be more criminals out there. I mean, we're always getting messages asking us to provide our social security number or a credit card number,
several
pay a
times
bill that doesn't exist. Yes, and I mean that's criminal behavior, and we're seeing it in our individual lives. And people are not coming into our houses and beating down our door necessarily, but very invasive behavior on the part of criminals, many of whom are from overseas, but some in this country as well.
Yeah, and that's an issue that I think at some point we're going to have to really start addressing that. I mean, just using AI to help with like robocalls and just that constant kind of it's almost harassment type of behavior. We have to start kind of policing that, or it's really going to get out of hand.
Well, much of this is using artificial intelligence to engage in criminal behavior. um, and using social media and using the vulnerability of people in order to effectively steal money or take advantage of someone.
Yeah.
It'll be an interesting discussion to see if artificial intelligence of a very sophisticated level can interrupt that and prevent a lot of that from happening. This is not an area that the technology companies have been focusing on necessarily. They're excited about the technological aspect of this and the uses of it for their own business. But if we can use artificial intelligence to interrupt the bots, to fight other artificial intelligence, that would be grand. That would be incredibly helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just something that it makes me wonder if it, and maybe we already have the variations of this, but it makes me wonder if at some point we have like a division of law enforcement just around policing AI and that type of technology.
Well, police departments are using AI right now, and it's going to be incredibly helpful to them in reducing their workload, helping them focus, and helping them to identify criminal behavior. It's going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think certainly the federal government, the agencies, recognize that and have been using it probably since the 1950s when AI really began to be a thing. And that's just going to grow. But what you're mentioning is that is AI going to help us solve a lot of these criminal problems
Right.
and prevent this kind of behavior? And I sure hope it will. I mean, it certainly has the potential
Right.
to be very helpful in that regard, but we'll see. Companies need to focus on that and address that. And there are companies out there that are looking at that. And it could be a big deal. It could be, really, really valuable to us as humans, and also for the value of these companies to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it, I think it absolutely will be. I think it absolutely will be. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think it's so fascinating, and we're all, I won't say looking forward, but we're all a little nervous about where it's all going. So I think the book is The New Roaring Twenties, and I love the title because I think that's very accurate to what we're going through. Although, as you said, things are advancing much quicker than they were back in the 20s when we thought things were advancing fast then.
Well, absolutely right. And the book can be bought online with Amazon or Walmart, and also at bookstores, Barnes and Noble, and the independent bookstores.
Yeah.
I'm a great fan of bookstores. I actually read books.
Me too.
So
I love having them in my hand. I don't like to use a tablet or a phone.
Well, that's for me too. There's nothing better than being on an airplane for 3 hours and having a paper bell.
Agree. Well, so sir, before we wrap up, I wanted to mention that you have done a little. You had a little talk show that you did for a few years, Cinema Conversations, and I checked a few of those out. It was really well done. I saw you had Jason Stewart. That's a friend of ours, and that was really well done. Curious as to whether you have any plans to revisit that type of show.
I don't think so. I think I did it. We made a lot of shows. I enjoyed it, but frankly, and in the world and with this book, I'm a little busy right at the moment. So I think I'll kind of stay with what I have going on. Plus, I'm trying very much to be helpful and of service to my friends, and that takes focus as well.
Absolutely. And very valuable. That's something, as you said, if we all did a little more of that, how much better would the world be?
I think it's critical. I think it'll allow us to deal with AI and recapture our own humanity.
Yeah, agree. Agree. Okay, so the last thing, sir, before we wrap up, are you on social media? And if you are, where can we find you?
I'm not. I
I kind of suspected that maybe you weren't, but do you have like a website or anything?
Our companies, Here Media and Region Entertainment have websites. If you want to see, what movies I'm working on or have worked on, you can Google me and you'll get a sense of all that. And
Yeah.
also, a lot of the books I've written over the years.
Yeah, I think I love the fact that you've got you've worked in law, you've done accounting type of work, but you've never just stopped there. You've gotten involved in the entertainment business, you're involved with writing. You're very busy. I don't know how you would have time to be of service to other people, because it looks to me like you're really busy.
Well, you just make it a priority. And uh, people help me and Wisconsin. I had a professor, Jim Grascan, who was a quadriplegic and had no movement from the neck down.
Yeah.
And he was an inspiration because he put up each day more than most of us have to put up in a lifetime.
Sure.
So, you have to pay it forward a bit and try.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Useful where you can.
Yeah, I think that's it's such good advice, and probably a good place to wrap up. If we all look for those opportunities to pay it forward and to help each other out, it really will make the world such a better place, and maybe get us back to where it's not so adversarial with each other. We used to be able to argue without getting upset if somebody had a different opinion, but we've gotten away from that a little bit. So maybe getting more in that service mindset would help us get back to that.
Well, you are so right. Um, it's important that we listen to people who disagree with us.
Right.
And have different points of view, not to change their points of view, but to really listen. A lot of people just can't listen. They're too busy thinking about the next thing they're going to say. So, this reaching and touching other human beings, I think, is critical, particularly during the new Roaring '20s.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna start using that when I'm talking about now. Be like, yeah, it's the new Roaring '20s.
You're welcome to it. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Yeah, sir, you'll have to come back anytime. If I wouldn't be surprised if you wrote more on this subject, or if you're producing a new movie or a show, just holler. We'll get you back on. This has been great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Hold on one second. So, author, lawyer, producer, Stephen Jarchow. Apologies that we are having so many technical issues with that. I hope that you got to hear the majority, because what he's talking about, I think, is so interesting and something that we're all dealing with right now, trying to get a handle on this new technology with AI and how we are going to use it. We all are having our fun doing the images, and poor AI right now has trouble with hands and arms and things, but does facials. The faces that it makes are really well done, but that'll improve over time. So we're enjoying that, but it's definitely worthwhile to acknowledge how much AI is going to change the way we live right now and how quickly it's happening. We have to make strides in getting a handle on how AI is used so that we can police it and make sure that it's being used appropriately. And hopefully, he mentioned, I hope you caught that, we may be able to use AI more in the future to battle other AI that is being used illegally, which may be very helpful. Obviously, we've had issues here in the United States from other countries interfering in our political landscape. That's not ideal. So if we can, get to the point where we're able to counteract that and police that, it has to be beneficial to us. But we can't do it to the point where we're actually adding to the strain of our prison system. That's the part that we're long overdue to get in and figure out if there are certain crimes that don't need to be in prison. I try really hard not to get political on this show because I think everybody's opinion is valid, and I've got my own opinions, and I doubt that you care too much about those. So I tend to keep most of those to myself. But I will say on the prison issue, there's people being put into prison for crimes that really don't make sense. The one that really stands out is marijuana use. We've got how many people in jails now based on usage of something that is now legal in half the country. That doesn't make any sense. Get those people out of our jails, take that burden off of the state, make it more livable inside the jail. I understand people do wrong, they need to be punished, but we don't need to be inhumane. Let's make it livable and safe inside those jails so that when people get out of jail, they can reintegrate back into society. And I love the idea of giving a stipend once they get out, something minimal, but just to make sure that they're able, maybe you put a time limit on it. Maybe you help them for the first year or the first 2 years when they get out with a small amount so that they're able to reestablish themselves. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to have all the answers to that, but I can tell you that it's something that we have to deal with. So I'll get off my soapbox. I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was really interesting. I'm really interested to see how it goes in the entertainment business going forward. How are they going to compensate that likeness usage? And is it going to impact, some of the actors within the entertainment world? I'm guessing that at least as far as background actors, it's going to have an effect. We're going to see it having a negative effect there. Thank you guys. I could keep going, but I'll stop there. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you hanging in there through some of the technical issues. If you're finding this for the first time and you enjoyed it despite the issues, thank you. Really appreciate that. We would love to have your support. It's easy to do. If you're watching, our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. We just ask that you hit that subscribe button. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. If you're listening, just wherever you listen to your podcast at, just subscribe there. That'll help us so much. Really appreciate that. You can find today, we put out episode 632. You can find all of those audio and video on our website, meistercon.com. So definitely check us out there. We're also listed as one of the top 100 podcasts on IMDb. So if you go to imdb.com and look up To Opinionated, you can see our page. It'll let you know every guest that we've ever had on the show. Over 600 of them, so there's plenty. So please do that. That traffic on the page, again, it's free, but it really does help us out. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm once again here to ask for your support. It's been a big year for the Two Opinionated podcast. Back in February, we got to live out a dream, moderate for William Shatner here in our hometown. In May, we passed 100,000 downloads on our YouTube channel, and we followed that up in June with 50,000 downloads on the audio side. We recently posted our 600th episode, which is pretty good volume for just a father and son operation. Not too many podcasts can keep that volume up. We've been doing this now for 4.5 years, 600 plus episodes. We recently hit 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, which is a really big deal for us because we've always gotten the views, but have struggled to get people to subscribe. So that 1,000 was a big deal for us. And best of all, we were recently named one of the top podcasts on IMDb, which is the entertainment database. Those that are ahead of us, we came in at number 82. Those that are ahead of us are bigger companies like Disney, mostly Marvel, and Joe Rogan, that type of podcast. So for us, being just a small West Virginia father and son podcast, to be in the top 100 out of 15 million, it's a pretty big deal for us. So thank you for everything you've done for us so far. Got a couple little ways, though, that you can help us, and they're free, and they're really easy. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel yet, please go to YouTube. It's under MeisterCon Pod. Just hit subscribe. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Really helps us a ton. And maybe even more important, if you could go to IMDb, imdb.com, look up the Two Opinionated podcast, and just look around the page. Just having that traffic on the page really helps us out. So that's a couple easy ways that you can support us, even if you're not listening or watching all of the time. And we want you to listen and watch, because I think that our guest list, I would put up against anybody, any other show, podcast, anybody out there. I think our guest list holds up. So please check us out. You probably will find somebody that you like, or maybe somebody that you didn't know you liked, but kind of discovered them on there. There's tons of that. If you're into music, we have that too. If you like books, we've got authors on there. If you're more into what goes on behind the scenes in the entertainment world, we've got producers, directors, video artists, anything you can think of that happens behind the scenes, we've had them on the show. So definitely check us out. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody.